Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us over £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million every day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing 15 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
the subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a highly skilled, dedicated police unit. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed.
Police officers, can you come to the door, please?
Today, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department is involved in a multiple raid.
Forget about the insurance company now, it's a police matter, and I'll be dealing with it.
Surveillance footage is used to catch a fraudster in the act.
Mr. Dadboy was followed into his place of work, which is where it all unravelled for him.
What it is, I do quite a lot of pick up and deliver.
And the staggering story of the vet who thought he could cheat the system, but lost everything.
He chose a life of fraud, and he's now paying for it.
In these times of financial uncertainty, an insurance policy that pays out in the event of unemployment can be worth its weight in gold. At least that's what 49-year-old Anwar Dadaboy thought when he took out such a policy with Aviva in 2008. It's one of those insurances that you hope you never need, but unfortunately Mr. Dadaboy was made redundant in 2011. The good news, though, was that his policy was still in place, and so he was able to make a claim from it.
He had an entitlement to approximately £1,500 a month, primarily to offset his mortgage payments for the period that he was unemployed.
Several months into the claim, one of Aviva's operatives made a routine call to Mr. Dadaboy to see how things were going.
Hello?
Hello, can I speak to Mr. Anwar Dadaboy, please?
He's going on at the moment, so are you speaking?
Is he at work? I can call back later on.
Yes, he is at work.
Hang on a minute, what was that, sorry? Did he just say Mr. Dadaboy was at work?
Yes, he is at work.
Surely there must be some kind of mistake. I thought the claim was for unemployment.
What time was the best to call him back?
Around 8 o'clock.
Not a problem. Thank you for your time.
To be told that someone claiming to be unemployed was actually at work wasn't exactly the response Aviva was expecting to hear.
Clearly it would have been inappropriate to continue a conversation, but I think the explanation that he's at work was less than helpful to Mr. Dadaboy, yeah.
Apparently, aware that on face value it looked as though he might be pulling a fast one, it wasn't long before Mr. Dadaboy got in touch to set the record straight.
So see, what is yesterday afternoon, somebody rang about 2:15, because I was at the job centre obviously yesterday afternoon because I had an appointment and it's very tough out there still.
No, that's fine, that's okay.
Well, that's that cleared up then. For a moment there, it seems as though Mr. Dadaboy was one of those insurance fraudsters. But just in case Aviva had any doubts, he made sure they knew what a fine and upstanding man he really was.
If I was to do like some voluntary work without any pay, how does that affect my things? Because I'm thinking, the mosque I go to, try and help them, and this because I wasn't sure if that affects anything because I'm not getting paid for it.
It's voluntary work, so it's not paid work, is it? So you can do that as much as you want.
Thank you very much for your help. I wasn't too sure, that's why I rang.
No problem. Anything else I can help you with today, Mr. Dadaboy?
Oh yes, can you pay all my mortgage off?
So not only was Anwar Dadaboy a good Samaritan, but he also had a cracking sense of humour. Although as far as Aviva was concerned, this was no laughing matter.
I do think some people underestimate the resources and sophistication that insurers have nowadays to identify and detect fraud. We instructed surveillance on Mr. Dadaboy for a short period, and that uncovered a vehicle at his house, a van with AD motors on the side, and Mr. Dadaboy was followed in that van to his place of work, which is where it all unravelled for him.
See what it is, I do quite a lot of pick up and deliver as well.
It wouldn't take you long just to give it a once over, would it?
Well, I would say about half an hour.
Yeah, half an hour. So how long have you been here then?
I've been here since October.
Oh, okay. It's alright, isn't it? It's alright.
I've done it all up.
After examining the footage, it didn't take Aviva long to decide that this wasn't voluntary work. And that this definitely wasn't the local mosque. With rock-solid evidence that Mr. Dadaboy had been earning money from his own business whilst claiming on his policy, Aviva decided to pay him a visit.
He was confronted face-to-face, and at that point, with the overwhelming evidence, he admitted that he had been working. And as a result of that, the claim was repudiated in March 2012. In July, we instructed the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Eventually, he was convicted in the Old Bailey in 2013 of fraud and received 120 hours community service.
Now, in case you're thinking Mr. Dadaboy got off lightly, this case had a rather nasty sting in the tail.
He was also ordered to repay the monies that he had received under the policy and to pay legal costs, which was about £10,000 in total.
Thanks to a routine phone call, Anwar Dadaboy had found out the hard way that you can't cheat the system and get away with it. But what separates him from so many other fraudsters is that he did have a genuine claim.
The irony about Mr. Dadaboy's case, I think, is that he was prudent enough to take out a policy to cover him and his family in the event that he was unemployed. He was unemployed and he had a policy to fall back on, but because of his greed and his fraudulent exaggeration of the claim, he actually forfeited all of the benefit he was entitled to, and because he's now got a conviction, is going to find it even harder to get employment in the future. So the kind of question is it worth it, really?
In Anwar Dadaboy's case, the answer to that question is a definite no. Still to come, the doctored pet insurance claims, which added up to a £200,000 fraud.
Every single cat or dog that was in those policies was completely made up.
And a car insurance scammer's worst nightmare.
Normally they would say that all of this occurred in one incident, but it's not. It's 3 separate occurrences.
In January 2012, the police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 450 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
So if you're thinking about it, I suggest think again. There's every chance you'll get an IFED detective come knocking on your front door.
It's 6:45 a.m. and the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department is carrying out a raid on a group of suspects who are thought to have been scamming a health insurance company. Tom Hill and his team are en route to one of the addresses.
The total amount paid out by the insurance company is about 20,000. We suspect they've been doing it to other insurance companies as well, so that figure could rise.
It's thought the suspects are working as a large group, and so IFED is preparing to raid 2 separate locations.
There's another team going to another address, and it will be a simultaneous arrest if all goes to plan.
With several suspects at the first location, Tom needs to make sure his team act fast.
It's just a question of securing entry in the first case and making sure the premises is secure and all the people inside are accounted for our own safety.
A few miles away, the other IFED team has arrived at the address of the other suspects and are in position ready to make their move. With raids like this, speed and surprise are everything. Once alerted, suspects may make a run for it.
Have a look, mate.
So, with the exits covered, the occupants of both houses are given a rude awakening.
Police officers, can you come to the door, please?
Good morning. from the City of London Police?
Yes, please. Yeah?
Do you mind if we come in and I'll speak to you? I'll tell you what's happening. Okay. Who else is in the house? We'll get them down. Are they upstairs? And I'll speak to you all at once. They're going to have to wake up.
Good morning. Detective Inspector Ben Flanagan from the City of London Police, Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. Can I come in, please?
The crew remain outside at this address. Meanwhile, at the other location, Tom and his team have rounded up the 3 occupants of the house.
Okay, we're detectives from the City of London Police, Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. I'm going to arrest 3 of you, okay, on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud. Okay, so you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later line in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
I am ready to sort.
The occupant claims the insurance company hasn't even spoken to him about the fraud.
To me first.
Okay, well, they say they have, and there is a problem, and it's been reported as a crime, so I'm going to deal with it now as a police officer, okay?
Yeah.
So forget about the insurance company now, it's a police matter, and I'll be dealing with it, okay?
The case is now in the hands of IFED, which means the investigation will be run by its rules. To make the raid shorter, IFED always asks for the suspect's help in locating any potential evidence.
As I say, we're going to search your whole house. But if it simplifies it, if you can tell us where any documentation in relation to any claims that you may have made are. Is there anything down here, or is it all upstairs?
The suspects are being cooperative and have said all paperwork is kept upstairs. Tom and the team begin with a systematic search of the entire property.
We've arrested the 3 people we set out to at this address. Searches will now take place before the suspects are taken back to the police station. We're looking for computer equipment which may have been used to manufacture fraudulent receipts and invoices. And we're looking for paperwork in relation to these insurance claims that are believed to be fraudulent.
Although this case relates to health insurance, the team have got their eyes open for anything out of the ordinary. No cupboard is left unsearched. Even old computers and laptops are seized, as they could contain vital evidence in the case. Everything is bagged up and labelled, ready to be taken away and examined by IFED's investigators.
We haven't found a huge amount of paperwork. What we have found is computer equipment, which we believe it may be on there. And we found stamps, and we found a large number of memory sticks, which also could well contain data. So we're reasonably pleased with what we found.
IFED's financial investigator, Simon Stiles, has been going through the suspect's finances.
Part of my job as a financial investigator is to establish what bank accounts people have, what say they have and what they did have, go through the records to confirm that, but also to see what lifestyle they've got.
As part of his investigation, Simon will seize bank statements and paying in books to enable him to build a clearer picture of the suspect's financial income.
So all the time I'm totting it up to see what expenditures in the house, their outgoings and incoming, and does it make sense, or is there a gap which would possibly suggest that they're living from the proceeds of criminal activity.
At the other address, officers have found something which could be important to the case. IFED's Ben Flanagan calls Tom to give him the news.
We've found details of a safety deposit box here. So I'm thinking that there may well be documents relating to this offence or cash from it in the box.
If IFED want to see what's being kept here, they need to fill in more paperwork to access it.
I've now got to consider whether or not we get another search warrant. So I'm just going to see who we've got available and who could draft up the warrant application, and then we'll get over to the court this morning and swear out the warrant.
With the searches of both properties complete, the suspects, along with the evidence seized, are taken back to the station. But the most important thing now is that IFED get its hands on the safety deposit box, which could contain important evidence. Still to come, IFED are surprised at what they find.
As you can see, it would appear that we've got items of jewellery. We'll be seizing all of this.
With around 65 million pets in the UK, it's fair to say that we're a nation of animal lovers. But caring for your furry friend can be an expensive business, and in recent years pet insurance has soared, with policies on cats and dogs paying out over £450 million in 2012 alone. Inevitably, unscrupulous fraudsters have seen this boom as an opportunity to line their own pockets and are costing the industry millions of pounds every year.
Good afternoon, IFED, how can I help you?
Simon Stiles is a financial investigator for IFED at the City of London Police. In 2012, he reviewed a claim submitted by a 38-year-old vet called Matthew Morgan for injuries to his pet cat, Joe.
Mr. Morgan had put in a claim that he was driving with his wife and the cat was on his wife's lap and they had an accident.
It all appeared pretty straightforward. But when the insurance company made a routine check with the surgery who were alleged to have carried out the treatment, the practice had closed a number of months ago, which raised alarm bells with the IFED team.
The doctor who had reportedly seen the cat at the time was actually working there, was on holiday at the time.
The insurance company could smell a rat and referred the case to Simon.
Over the period of 3 years, he had set up 19 different policies on the back of 19 animals that he said he owned. But he didn't know any of them. They were completely made up, every single cat or dog. So it wasn't an opportunist fraud. He saw an opportunity because of where he worked, but it wasn't an opportunity, it was premeditated.
After 3 years and over 50 fraudulent claims on pets that never even existed, Matthew Morgan really was the cat who got the cream and had developed what he thought was a foolproof recipe for success.
He would make an intercepted policy for insurance of a cat or dog. That didn't happen. And at some point, he would then make a claim. Everything was stamped to legitimise it from the veterinary surgeon, and the claim form would be sent off to the insurers.
Cashing in on phantom pets and using his professional reputation meant the claims were always paid, and in his own words, it was easy money.
Because it was a professional body, they wouldn't look at it again, and they'd be happy and pay out. And the money would go straight back into Mr. Morgan's account, and Mr. Morgan would spend it. It was spent on cars, it was spent on holidays. He had family in Australia, but he didn't just go there, he just had a lavish lifestyle. Lots of trips out, a lot of weekends, breaks, a lot of meals. It was just on everyday life, but luxurious things, and a lot of people can't afford that. And he could afford it in any event, but he just chose to go a little bit more.
Quite simply, Matthew Morgan was a man living beyond his means and driven by greed.
I worked out that throughout the period of his fraudulent claims, it was a period of some 37 months. And during that time, he'd actually legitimately earned £143,000. So averaged over £5,000 a month, which most people would think was a fair wage, and there was no need to do anything else. But he was greedy, he saw an opportunity, and he wanted more. And he got £198,000 more than he should have had. Unless it had been identified by the insurers and investigated by us, he'd still be carrying on. I've no doubt of that.
After abusing his position of trust and using his expert knowledge to deceive insurance companies, Matthew Morgan was well and truly in the doghouse.
I take personal satisfaction, as me and my colleagues do, into convicting these individuals. There's only one place for them, and that's behind bars.
Simon's view was echoed by the judge when Morgan appeared at the Old Bailey on the 23rd of August 2013 and was jailed for 2 years. He had lost his possessions, his home and his career after being struck off the register of veterinary surgeons. Matthew Morgan had lost everything.
Matthew Morgan was earning a lot of money legitimately. He had no need to commit fraud, no need whatsoever. He could have had holidays, he could have collected cars, he could have visited his family abroad. He chose a life of fraud, and he's now paying for it.
For unscrupulous criminals, car insurance fraud can be a massive earner, worth almost £400 million a year. But insurance companies and the police are clamping down and fighting back. One of the biggest threats to these fraudsters are forensic engineers like Barry Wheeler, and he's seeing more and more cases where crashes aren't what they might appear to be at first glance.
The job of a forensic engineer is to look at the damage on the cars in order to establish whether the cars have genuinely crashed in an accident or whether an accident's been manufactured or whether the cars have never hit each other at all.
A self-confessed petrol head, Barry has been examining crash scenes and damaged vehicles for almost 30 years. So when Barry speaks, insurance companies listen.
This damage here takes the form of horizontal scratches. Something has scraped along the side of the car. This is a vandal scratch. That's not related to that at all. That carries on through, but then separate on here, you've got the damage on the bumper. It's reversed into a post or something. Can you see there's this vertical line? Quite normally they would say that all of this occurred in one incident, but it's not. It's 3 separate occurrences. Completely different accident.
And there's no limit to the length some people will go to in order to boost their claim.
Well, I've seen cases where people have literally hit the wing of their car with a hammer and tried to induce an accident, but that's terrible. You see that as soon as you walk up to the car, you know full well it's nothing to do with it.
An opportunist taking a hammer to their pride and joy is one thing, but what Barry's dealing with more and more are criminal gangs who will go to extraordinary measures to cash in.
There are a number of people that want to make fraudulent insurance claims, and they will make an accident happen. Crash for cash is where people will either get 2 vehicles which are both damaged and say that they've crashed into each other. They may just get a car and crash into it on purpose and say it was an accident. Sometimes they'll even dupe a member of the public into crashing into them. But they do it on purpose in order to say that an accident has occurred so that they can make a claim.
Having dealt with thousands of car crashes over the years, Barry knows all too well that the real cost of this type of crime isn't measured in pound notes.
When people are duped into having accidents, it's traumatic. Lorry drivers, they're people like you and I, they crash into a vehicle, it affects them. I mean, they may lose their job if they have too many accidents, but it's not their fault if someone's causing it. So it's not a victimless crime, there's a lot of victims involved. And of course, people are getting injured as well, genuinely getting injured.
The good news is that with the help of experts like Barry, car insurance fraud is being stamped out.
I think fraudsters need to know that it's coming to an end. The courts are becoming aware of their actions. Everybody in the industry is aware of what they're doing. We have the tools to prove the frauds that are being committed, and it's being clamped down on.
One of the biggest success stories in the fight against this crime dates back to 2007. When the Claims Fraud Intelligence team at Aviva were alerted to some suspicious activity from an individual linked to a claims management company.
There were a large number of claims that were received. The accident location was very similar, the accident circumstances were all very similar. They were pulling out of side roads and they all linked back to the same company, so we investigated further.
The idea of a claims management company is to help take the stress off the policyholder, but this particular company was only interested in helping itself.
They were deliberately crashing vehicles into each other to claim for hire, recovery, storage. The engineers' reports that they were submitting were not consistent with the damage when our engineers inspected them. The hire documentation was fraudulent and they were submitting a high number of injury claims.
The company had been staging accidents and then cashing in on the claims, and it soon became clear that Aviva were dealing with motor insurance fraud on a massive scale.
I don't think I anticipated how quickly it was going to grow. It grew on a weekly basis and very quickly we had a large number of claims, and this was a massive fraud ring of 64 live claims that we were dealing with.
But the surprises didn't end there. The investigation revealed that over a 4-year period, the directors of the company had submitted over 120 bogus claims for accidents that never even happened, in a scam worth £2 million. Unaware that the insurance companies were onto them, the fraudsters thought they were laughing all the way to the bank. But they were about to get a nasty surprise of their own.
We presented all the evidence and our findings to the Metropolitan Police, and they decided that this was an organised crime and it was something that they were going to investigate and take further. Sam Solhack received 5 years imprisonment and 10 years disqualified of being a company director, and at the time that was the largest ever prison sentence for conspiracy to defraud an insurer, so Aviva were particularly proud of being involved in this investigation.
Sam Solhack's 2 associates were given a total of 6 years behind bars and banned from being company directors for 5 years each. The trio had been well and truly claimed and shamed, and the tough sentences they received sent out a clear message to anyone else who thought insurance fraud is easy money.
I think before this case, fraudsters thought that they could get away with this kind of activity, that the worst that was going to happen was that their claims wouldn't be paid. But I think the largest ever prison sentence of 5 years shows that this is a precedent-setting case and that they will be prosecuted and they will be sentenced.
Police officers, can you come to the door, please?
Who else is in the house? They're going to have to wake up.
IFED has simultaneously raided 2 addresses in connection with a suspected medical insurance fraud group.
There is a problem and it's been reported as a crime, so I'm going to deal with it now as a police officer, OK?
So far, officers have uncovered laptops, memory sticks and several rubber stamps, all thought to be key in their investigation. The operation's gone well, although the biggest lead of the day may have come from the IFED team that raided the other property.
We've found details of a safety deposit box here. There may well be documents relating to this offence in the box.
The suspects have been arrested and taken to the local police station for questioning, while the IFED team apply for a warrant to access the safety deposit box. It's vital that IFED gets to it as quickly as possible, as they want to ensure that no one else tries to remove or destroy any potential evidence within it. Traditionally, items of high value are stored in these boxes, so the IFED team is keen to discover exactly what's inside.
And as you can see, it would appear that we've got items of jewellery. We'll be seizing all of this.
The box is packed full with jewellery, documents and other items of value, which may be evidence for the IFED investigation.
I've got a cash credit invoice here for £1,800.
We've found lots of jewellery. Until we get that appraised, we're not going to know exactly what the value of that is. But it'll be very interesting because obviously they're going to have to account for those items. It'll be very interesting to find out how these items came into their possession. So all in all, it's been a very successful day. That's everything, yeah.
The contents of the safety deposit box is IFED's largest ever haul of jewellery. The case is still under investigation.